Alright, so what is up guys, it's Zero here, and today I have for you the set 14 tier list. Yay, everybody's favorite video of the month. And this month we got support for Link Choker, Aquaforce, Angel Feather, Novas, and Dimension Police, right? Yeah. So without further ado, let's get on to the tier list. Let's just put in all the old stuff first. So I'll go by like I'll probably just do by like worst to best decks, and then I'll leave all the new stuff for last. That's probably what everyone's interested in, and I'll probably have the most to say about the decks. So first, let's get the. Alright, before we even put anything down, let's just put the tier. So S tier are like the best decks. These are the decks you should expect to see in tournaments. These are the decks you should expect to see in ladder. The most commonly, A is like good decks, but like have some faults and aren't as good as these decks, in my opinion at least. And then you might run a few of these on ladder, but these are slightly less common, but still relatively common. And then B is like I'd say it's like playable on ladder if you're just looking for a deck to climb with, but I wouldn't call them amazing, nor would I use them in tournaments. So yeah, that's the kind of criteria I have for this. So let's start off with MLB is, my opinion, still relevant deck. Funny thing is, this deck has like in my opinion, a relatively solid Link Joker matchup, because on your first MLB turn where you suck in the Blade in the Dark, if you put them both in the front row, you suck both your front row in, you hit the Link Joker player to like probably 4 or 5, and your front row is empty, so they can't really do anything against you. And if you play the Link Joker enough, you also know that Chaos Breaker hates anything that isn't 11k base. This MLB being 12k base actually makes this matchup really annoying for Link Joker. So that's pretty cool. I say that's the best niche it has right now. 2-crit Vanguard is still cool, I guess. Ganslot's still broken off for obvious reasons, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as it was before. And it's here because it's good against Link Joker, but it pretty much dies to everything else because the deck is still relatively frail because you still have the second intercepts. Next we have Ezel. So I actually think Ezel's a little worse than MLB now. Ezel's kind of like the opposite. It's like relatively solid against everything else because you still like shit out intercepts like nobody's business. Pop stuff with spirits, like you do Ezel things, but like your deck is so field based, you just kind of die Link Joker, which is, spoilers alert, very popular and very good in my opinion. So don't have a good Link Joker matchup, you're probably not that good. Next, another deck that has the same issues where you don't have a good Link Joker matchup, it is the old Aquaforce deck, the Maelstrom deck. I think it's a little better than Ezel, because you can still cheese things with Glory. Yeah, same problems. It's like playing base Maelstrom into Glory for like good value with like you learn brick with base Maelstrom, draw a card, nuke a card, and then you try Glory to kill them. Still pretty okay. Still pretty okay in the current meta, but again, since to do all the Maelstrom stuff, you need to actually have a full board, and full board means you committed to getting locked by Link Joker. So yeah, that's the problem here. It's like still an okay solid deck, but you like really die Link Joker. Like you get 1, maybe 2 turns of doing things. So like once they hit limit break, you just die because you're done playing the game for at least 2 turns. So yeah, that's why it's here. It's not like amazing by any means. It's just kind of something you'll see every once in a while. Next, let's go with Pale Moon. It's definitely I think it's like I don't rate this deck very highly. I think it's actually worse than these 2 decks, to be honest. The deck is like, it does cool things. If you play Silver Thorns, you can do multi-attacks and stuff. If you play Turtle's still very annoying, but again, your deck is still relatively field reliant, although you do have ways to get stuff into your soul to not get locked. But your deck is still relatively field reliant, so that's a problem there. And your multi-attacks aren't as good as like the other decks. So yeah, cheating cross-rep is kind of cool, but that's about it. So yeah, so that goes here. Nothing too amazing. It's playable, I guess. Next, Steel Dragons. I think Steels are like better than everything here. They make intercepts go away, and that's pretty good in Zero. That's honestly nothing else to say. And then again, you also have access to cross-red base to annoy the shit out of Chaos Breaker, but it's okay. It's a playable deck. I think it's actually like pretty solid now because cross-red base is actually kind of relevant in a matchup. So yeah, nothing else to say. I know this deck's running rampant on global, but this deck goes away after that. Over once this month is over, but yeah, still an okay deck on JP. You just run into it very rarely you run into it, but you still see it every once in a while. So yeah, it's here. Beyond the blow up intercept, still kind of cool. Next you have ethics. I think it's like, that's probably here. Again, you're another field reliant deck. Yes, you can still do your kill turn with one column, so you can like give Link Joker. If you see a common trend, I do rate Link Joker very highly, and since it's such a common matchup, if your deck has a poor Link Joker matchup, you are probably not getting rated very highly by me. So yeah, you could push them Limit Break with only one empty column, so you can still do your Limit Break turns, but turns like that are just so much weaker than what they should be. So yeah, goes here. You can still murk other decks, but it's still a little it's still like a high rolly combo deck for me. So that's why I don't rate this. I don't really think this deck is like that amazing. It's good, but it's not terrible. But it's good, but it's not terrible. But I wouldn't rate it any higher than this. Even without Link Joker, I still think it's somewhere in this area. Next, I think the last deck I'm gonna put into here, last old deck that I'm gonna put here, I didn't have it last time because I'm gonna reverse instead, but this time I have Reiji. Is Reiji Dark Regulars. I fucking cannot stand this deck. This deck is obnoxious as fuck to play against, and is actually somewhat common on ladder now. There is definitely an argument to put it like the bottom of here. Honestly, yeah. No, I think this deck still has some weaknesses that people just aren't exploiting. So yeah, Reiji is like the anti-meta pick in my opinion, where you just kind of hold bricker decks at 3, try to kill them from 3. But the problem with this deck sometimes, if your opponent, the problem with this deck is that gain of 15 soul is usually not the problem for once. It's like decking out is sometimes an issue. Gain of 15 soul on turn 3 is sometimes an issue, but not really. And then you don't really have the ability to play retires. So like on their first grade 3 turn, if your opponent actually put double interceptor and they're at 2, you're kind of forced to just not do something for a turn, basically. Like this deck is like annoyed by like really obscure things like that. Like your opponent's at 2, because more often than not you don't have the space to play stuff like Win in your decks, and even if you do, you're probably not playing them in more than like 2 copies. This deck's really annoyed by stuff like that, but this deck is still very solid because you can deny limit breaks and all that. I know the JP players rate this deck relatively highly. I know they have it like up here. Some sites even have it like up here for laddering. So then yeah, if I find the deck annoying, it can't be that bad, right? I actually hate this deck. This deck is obnoxious as fuck to play against. The Amon follower stuff really made this deck super consistent with the gain to 15 soul super early. So yeah, that's why it's here. But the problem with this deck is this deck kind of loses its niche if the deck isn't like break card reliant. Like if you're playing against like funny, if you're playing against like stuff here, then you just ping them like this FLV. Novell isn't really lane break reliant either. Same with Zook. Like decks that just don't care and can still do their things even if you hold them at 3 the entire game. Yeah, kind of might be an issue, but decks that don't care about limit break or break ride just kind of go like, oh, you're like relatively annoying. Like, I'm just gonna kill you before I die. So yeah. Also, this deck just kind of folds if your opponent just draws too many PGs. Well, that's a lot of decks, but this deck also gets put in situations where they just straight up cannot win because they've been holding you at 3 the entire time. Like, if they can't kill you from 3, they're probably not going to kill you because you're at 3, and unless they have multiple crit rear guards, they're not doing anything else. Those check for 1 PG pass, check for 1 PG pass. That's all that does. So yeah. Okay deck, very fucking annoying. I personally wouldn't play in tournaments, that's why I would put it here, but it is honestly a very good ladder deck. So yeah. Next up for the old decks, I just put the one, I think the weakest decks here is still Liberators. So yeah, I think Liberator's still here. Garmor lets you actually play around lock by putting front row reads that you already attacked with back into the bottom of the deck to open up a circle. And Garmor's protection actually stops Chaos Breaker from popping your cards. So this deck once again has proven itself to be like this cool like anti-meta niche pick that can just kind of deal with stuff. And then Garmor obviously still protects from stuff like Chaos, from all of Eradicators, protects from Blaster Dark, and protects from Novell and the Novel Critic, stuff like that. So yeah, still a pretty solid card. Deck that has a cool anti-meta niche, and the rest of the deck isn't shit. Like the rest of the deck is still like it's still playable cards. So like something here's like the problem with Reiji is that your entire deck is just all cards that jam soul, and that's literally all the deck is. This deck is actually Liberators are actually playing like good cards in the deck to do things. So yeah, that's why I think it's here. I think it's the bottom of this like A tier area. I do think it's the worst out of this tier, but I do think it is something that I would think about, but don't think I'd take to a tournament. Who knows? Maybe they'll change it next month if we get more when we get like Ganslot Zenith, very likely. Yeah, next bottom of A. Next to this is Eradicators. This deck has not changed in quite a while now. Nothing really changed. Even if you play global, you know what this deck does. A little weaker here in JP because our Linshu is nerfed, but that's hardly. It's kind of sad that it died, but like it's kind of whatever. But problem with this deck is you don't see your draws, you die. You brick, you die. The deck feels super win more, but when it does win, it wins because your Vanguard has a crit when you restand. So yeah, that's why I think the Eradicators are here. Nothing much else to say. It's been here for forever now. It seems the first break ride set. So yeah, solid card, a solid deck. I keep saying card. I see the card, but solid deck, still playable. JV players still play it. I'd consider it, but I don't think I'd ever actually play, just because I don't really like the high rolling nature of this deck. So yeah, I think Eradicators go here. Next up, we have my beloved Tsukuyomi. Honestly speaking, I'm a little a little iffy on this deck right now, just because like I personally haven't played the matchup myself, but I would imagine Link Joker right now with Chaos Breaker as your time your stuff isn't very fun, because this deck actually can't deal with lock very well, but you deal with everything else really well, and you can still set up heals to just wait for Link Joker to eventually run out of steam, because the deck at some point will be out of counterblast, and if they don't heal because they have no counter charges, if they don't heal, there's out of steam, and then you can play your game, you taunt them to death, easy peasy, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's here. This deck is still legally cheating, but like when you brick, and you just die. If this deck was brick proof, it would be up here, even with Link Joker locking your stuff. So yeah, nothing else to say. It's been here for actually forever. To be sure, since it's 2. So yeah, nothing too much else to say. Solid deck. Next, I think the last deck I'll put in here for now is Spikes. And as you can clearly, since I said this is the last deck we put here, you'll clearly see that I have put more than one deck in here for once. So yeah, Spikes have the really good niche of having the best Link Joker matchup. You tag if you're on bad end, you tag your front row, just empty out your soul. You actually don't care about soul in this deck when you're on bad end. You empty out your soul, you attack, you can rush with scaled lanes. Don't let Link Joker lock your front row, and then when they give you 4 damage, you kill them with your break ride turn. Still probably one of the scariest break ride turns in the game, especially if they don't have double intercept out. So yeah, fairly solid, still very good deck. Only problem with this deck is you don't really plus aside Devil Summoner, so if you don't see your draw triggers, you kind of are really scuffed for cards to play. But just flip draw triggers, right? Easy peasy. You also have Jelly Beans. Recyclable heals are always stupid, so yeah. This deck is just very powerful. It's probably the best deck on global right now, but on JP I think there are a few decks that are a little bit better than it, despite it having a good matchup against a deck that I do think is over it. So yeah. Next, this represents Novell Dote, but I figured I'd just use Dote because Dote is still like the face of the deck, more or less. But yeah, this represents like the Novell Dote list, where you play like Novells and Dotes and like whatever else you want. I think it's Overlords, but some people play Dauntlesses and they can be raw for all I care. So yeah, this represents the Novell Dote list. I think this is, yeah, after a little bit of thinking, I think that like the power gap between this and Revengers isn't actually a whole tier. I do think this deck is very powerful. You just flip, like, this deck is one of those decks where you just flip a few draws and you just win because you have the cards to play down every turn. So yeah, Strike and Dote still the original break ride turn. You can dunk them from 5 because of new PGs. But yeah, very powerful, very powerful deck. It is a deck that I'd absolutely consider taking tournaments. And yeah, this very good deck. The only actual problem with this deck is, again, your Kagero, so you actually have 0 draw power outside of Dote. So not seeing your draws will absolutely lose you the game. Yeah. So yeah, nothing else to say. It's been here for like a month now. Very common on JP ladder. I play a deck myself. I think the deck's very powerful. I don't think it's the best deck because the best deck is Revengers. So yeah, nothing else to say. This deck is just good. It's Kagero, but with really good cards in it. You have Dote, Novell, Overlord, Critic, CB1 retires, Stonks, Grey 1 Novell Cycle heals. Yeah, you know what the deck does. You'll know why it's really powerful. And then finally, the top dog is probably still Revengers because you have literally everything. You are Erads, but better in every single way, except like your kill turn's a little worse, but the rest of your deck is much better. You have cheap retire, cheap call. You have restanding Vanguard that costs no counterblast, that can make itself for the Persona rewrite. Mordred's busted card. Yeah, not much else to say. This deck is fucking busted. Hey, all of Low is left to find that out next month. And best deck, it's just the deck that has everything. It even has a good Link Joker matchup because Raging Inform, as long as you have the PGs to survive, Raging Inform lets you sack off your entire front row while pushing for damage. So yeah, that's the deck's up here. Very powerful, very good deck. And it is the best deck, and I don't see it dropping down anytime soon. Alright, so now you see we have only the Catastrophic Outbreak decks left. So I guess we'll start with what in my opinion is probably the worst out of this bunch is Angel Feather. They definitely go back here. Nothing. The deck just Rainbow Reverse didn't really help. The Grade 2 didn't. It's cool, but I don't think it really helped them either. Having an extra OCL in the Grade 1's kind of cool, I guess. This deck is just this deck is only good when it starts like sacking all its green triggers, but that's every deck. So yeah, it's just mildly annoying a lot of the times because you can flip greens and blow up their boosters. If the opponent heals, the thing gets bigger. That's also kind of annoying. So yeah, the deck is annoying, but doesn't actively do anything to kill you. So yeah, that's why I think it's here. Next, I think one of the most overhyped deck of this set is Blouse. I think this deck is like way worse than Ethics, to be honest. Honestly speaking, I think this deck is like here. I think this deck is so garbage. Or, I guess garbage is a little over. It's a little too much, putting a little too much, but like, this deck is so overrated. This deck is not that good. Like, the starter's cool, but once it dies, you're quite literally playing vanilla Vanguard. The Break Ride is Ethics, but more expensive, but costs Counterblast. Galaxy Blau is like, yeah, like, I just don't think this is very good. I don't think this deck is very good in general. Like, you're basically doing the same thing as Ethics, but you're forced to play a bunch of Blau names to fulfill the requirement for the starter. The coolest thing this deck can do is, oh cool, you can maybe dig a PG out the top 3 with your starter, but again, everything's like, the starter is good, I won't deny that. The starter is good, but the rest of the deck sucks. You're playing this but worse. You're playing Ethics but worse, except you have to, and because of the starter, you have to play other cards in the deck to make that deck even worse. So yeah, it's like the starter is not worth the payoff in my opinion, because you're forced to play other junk in your deck. So that's why I think it's here. Next we have Tetra Drive. I think Tetra Drive and Glory is actually very close. I do think if Link Joker wasn't a thing, I do think Maelstrom and Glory is the better deck, but how I see these two decks is that Tetra Core, like Transcore Tetra Drive, has a better matchup against Link Joker, but is overall a less good deck than the Maelstrom deck. So, if Link Joker is very popular, you like can swap these two around. Like, I think these two are relatively interchangeable. I don't think the power level is like super different, but this deck has a better Link Joker matchup, which gives it something. But overall, I still don't think it's very powerful because it just doesn't play well with zero mechanics, having to hit intercepts and stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure there's not. Please correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there isn't an actual way to knock 2 cards out of your opponent's hands with the Tetra Drive Transcore if they have double intercept up. Again, I could be wrong. Please correct me if I am, but like the cool little interaction between those two just don't work for his double intercept, and that's really sad. So yeah, that's why I think it's here. I don't think the deck is like terrible, but I definitely don't think it's amazing either. Next up, we have another relatively overhyped deck. I think it's Dayusha. I think it's like I think it's like here, like middle of this. All right, the first thing we're getting out of the way, I think Daikaiser is overrated as all hell. I think the card's so overrated. I don't think the card's that good either. Having to actually like those lull sack police, they'll always flip the triggers. Not wrong, but like the fact that your break card requires you to see a fucking trigger to do anything is just sad. Like holding the opponent at 3 with like your break ride and like a go cannon, like that's cool and all, but for one you have to have the go cannon. For 2, go cannon is still a -1. But if it works, I guess. But I personally am on the train of Dayusha Turbo as being the better build. But even then, I don't think that deck is like too amazing. I think the deck is definitely in like mid B tier 2, whatever you want to call this tier, like in this area. Not terrible, but like definitely not good. Yeah, it's cool. It definitely makes the deck playable now. Yeah, this just represents both like the Dayusha Turbo build and like the Daikaiser build, because Great Dai is honestly the boss of both decks, because easy +1 crit's cool. Yeah, that's why this is here, and it's okay. It's definitely a playable deck. I definitely won't call it like complete garbage, because it isn't. Next up, finally, we have the elephant in the room. We have a Link Joker, the very popular deck. I think it is the bottom of S tier. I think it's the 3rd best deck in the game right now. There are games, there are games where I've played where my hand was a brick, but with like grade 3s and stuff, but lock is such a powerful mechanic in Zero that some decks just cannot deal with that. Even with bad hands, you can still win like that. Obviously, if you have bad hands, you're still probably going to lose if your opponent has a good hand, but lock is just a super powerful mechanic. And Chaos Breaker, letting you pop the intercepts after you lock them is so powerful, because you can go break right turn, lock, Chaos Breaker, lock front, lock back, Chaos Breaker, lock the other front, triangle lock them. You like hit their face 3 times because your lanes are all scaling, more often than not anyways. You hit them 3 times, they're probably at 5, you check the PG. Next turn, let's just say they didn't heal, you go Chaos Breaker, pop the intercept, Chaos Breaker, lock the other card. Oh wow, 3 more PG checks. 4 PGs will die over the course of 2 turns. Obviously, not every game's gonna go that smoothly, for obvious, because low triggers, but like being able to just remove the intercepts and then lock it again like that is just super powerful. Like it's just super strong. Chaos Breaker definitely saved the entire clan, because before you did like maybe like 1 turn of locking like front back, and then you went shorts, locked them again, and survive that turn, you just kind of don't do anything. This deck is, yes, it's more counter loss heavy than what it was IRL, but as long as you can manage your counter loss to some degree and you heal like maybe once, you are perfectly fine. Like this deck is just how well can you manage your counter loss. This deck rewards you for being able to actually manage your resources really well, because you definitely can't just go lock Holy Maker every single time you can use her, or lock every single time, because the deck actually has a cost now. CB1 Digit 2 is actually a cost. So yeah, very powerful. Lock is an absolutely busted mechanic in Zero. This deck does struggle against random stuff like spikes, which is like, you don't see that often, so that's how you can't get away with it on ladder. Good Revenger players will absolutely outplay you. Dote or Noveldo can also kind of mess with you, because they can like pop your boosters, pop your board, and then sit on 13 game base, which Chaos Breaker absolutely cannot stand. He hates that shit. So yeah, that's what I think is the weakest of these decks. There's definitely an argument to put it here as well, like to the top of here, but I think the deck is powerful enough. Now, I personally have been winning, like, I personally go on like very consistent win streaks on this deck on ladder too, just from personal experience. So yeah, these are my thoughts of the set 14 meta. This is what I think. Tell me what you think about this tier list in the comments. Like and subscribe, all the good stuff, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.